at that point, I left for Fort Niagara, which is near Niagara Falls, New York, where there was a reception camp for new soldiers, and I was classified as an enemy alien, which really didn't affect anything, except it left me there for a long time because the bureaucracy in the Army didn't know what to do with me.
Right.
This is 1942 or 43?
This is 1943.
Mm-hmm.
I went into service in April, I believe it was, of 1943. And I eventually, after many weeks, was sent to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to take basic training in the field artillery.
And let's digress a moment. You had met Mom in your first semester then at Cornell? Hadn't you met her before you were drafted?
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
No, I met your mother after I came back.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood that.
Okay, so you went to Fort Bragg for artillery training.
For field artillery basic. It was basic training, which was based on field artillery. We had 155 millimeter long tom artillery, and it was a good experience. At the end of the basic training, different people were sent to different places, and I was sent to what was called it was a women's college in Georgia, where people were sent as preparation for going to the Army Specialized Training Program, ASTP, as it was called, where I stayed for some weeks, and it was my first real experience being in the South, deep South.
And this is the summertime?
This is in the summertime.
So you were a private first class?
I was a private, period.
A private, okay.
Yeah. And I had some interesting friends down there, which one of whom was Chris Schenkel, who became a well-known sports announcer in the United States, who I never saw again after we left there. But Chris Schenkel and I went to Richmond. Well, I'm not sure which city it was in North Carolina, but it was a place where you would get time off. It was in Georgia. It was in Georgia, not North Carolina. It was in Georgia. And I've forgotten where it was we went. Well, you took a bus and you went, and in these towns they waited for the buses with soldiers to come in, and there were people there who wanted you to come home with them and have dinner. It was usually on a Sunday. And eventually we were shipped to the University of Wisconsin. And I can remember being there in a cold winter, really cold winter, and right on campus, stayed in a dormitory. And at that point, the Army Specialized Training Program was beginning to break up. The Army was beginning to think maybe that was not such a good idea. And I was shipped to a camp I don't remember the name right now.
Okay.
Where?
In Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I had sometime earlier done the unthinkable. This was back at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where the wisdom among the troops always was, don't ever volunteer for anything. So I had see now we're getting back to having been working on a farm when I was in high school.
Right.
Every summer I worked on a farm in high school, drove tractors and all kinds of weird vehicles. And when the time came at
Fort Bragg.
at Fort Bragg to say, who would like to volunteer for driving. Nobody volunteered except me. I volunteered, and I knew how to double clutch a truck, and I knew how to do all those weird things, and they immediately put me to work driving a garbage truck, which was manned by guarded prisoners, Army prisoners.
Oh, really?
And I drove the officer of the day, and which was good. And he always went to the clubs, to the officers' club, and I waited for him, presumably outside, but I was actually asked by the chefs to come into the kitchen, and they fed me good stuff.
Cool.
What's that?
I said,
great.
that's cool.
Yeah. So having an Army driver's license did me a lot of good because it kept me out a lot of kitchen police and things of that kind.
So how and when did you end up back in Europe?
Trying to think exactly when it was that we left for Europe. It was I think it was in very early 1944,
In the spring?
or else late in 1943.
Okay.
And we went over. By that time, the submarine danger had subsided somewhat, but we went in a very large convoy. We were our troop ship was a German passenger liner that the United States had taken from the Germans after World War I, and we were surrounded by destroyers and all kinds of stuff. And there were freighters in this convoy. It was a very large convoy. And eventually we ended up in Manchester, England.
Now, where did you sail out of?
We sailed out of...
So if you were in Pennsylvania.
Well, no.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm trying to think. I think it was Massachusetts. I think we sailed out of Boston.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you ended up in Manchester.
So we ended up in Manchester, where the way they housed the troops is that they forced the residents the British forced the residents of Manchester to take in soldiers if they had spare rooms, and we were three of us, I believe, were with an old Scottish couple in Manchester. They were pleasant, but they were not very, at first, not very pleased to have
Receptive,
us.
right?
As you can imagine, this is something that's
Right.
against the Constitution of the U.S. In the U.S., it can't force
Right.
you to do that
Right.
under any circumstance.
Had the Germans started to bomb England at that point in time?
Oh yes, the Germans had bombed London, and we were actively bombing Europe at that time.
Okay.
So